I'm Dan Farber, editor-in-chief of CBSNews.com, and I am joined by Sarah Dutton, who is the director of CBS News Survey. We're here to talk about the latest CBS News New York Times poll covering Sonia Sotomayor, as well as President Obama and Afghanistan, Iraq, all kinds of topics. But let's start with the Supreme Court nominee. Looks like most people would like to see her confirmed, but not by a vast majority.
No, certainly more people would like the Senate to confirm her than say, no, they don't want the Senate to confirm her. 34% think the Senate should confirm her, just 9% think they should not. But in fact, the majority, 53%, really can't say at this point whether they think the Senate should or should not confirm her. That's not unusual. We see the same type of thing with other nominees. People really don't know much about these nominees until quite a bit of time has gone by. They don't have opinions about them really until pretty close to the confirmation process.
She's replacing Justice Souter. Was it similar in terms of the polling for him?
It was. In fact, even more people didn't know him at the time just before he was confirmed than don't know about her right now. 33% of Americans have a positive opinion of her. Just 9% have a negative opinion of her. 58% say that they're undecided or they really don't know enough to have an opinion yet. Back in 1990 with Justice Souter, when we asked about him, only 13% had a favorable opinion of him. 5% were unfavorable and 81% were undecided or really couldn't say about him. So in fact, there are firmer opinions about Sonia Sotomayor than there were about previous nominees at this point in time.
I also noticed that the majority of people you polled think it's important for the Senate to know her position on issues such as abortion or affirmative action.
That's absolutely true. Americans think that in general, the Senate should explore those views, and 76% say that it's important for the Senate to ask her what her views are on some of these social issues. That's not new. In fact, about 3/4 felt the same way just before Samuel Alito became a Supreme Court justice and just before John Roberts. They want to know these nominees' positions on social issues.
Now, in the poll, you also asked the respondents about some of these social issues, and I think in one part of it said about 80% were in favor of programs for low-income people. But in the areas such as abortion, certainly a different result.
Well, you know, abortion, the responses are not quite as black and white as they are for affirmative action. Generally, we ask whether you favor or oppose affirmative action. With views on abortion, the responses we offer people who participate in our polls are a little more nuanced. We found 36% think that abortion should generally be available. 41% think that it should be available, but under stricter limits than it is right now, and 21% think it should not be permitted at all.
And how does that compare to previous polls?
You know, these numbers really don't change. We've been asking opinions about abortion for a long time, and they're very, very stable. Not very much causes them to differ at all.
Well, let's move on to President Obama. It seems like his rating is holding steady.
It is. 63% of Americans approve of the job he's doing as president right now. It's about the same as it was a month ago, down a couple of points from April, but generally a very strong approval rating.
Now, when it gets to his handling of the economy, it also seems pretty steady. It seems right now it's 57%. It was 56% in May and 61% in April, so not much change there. The auto industry, it seems like there's a lot of disapproval about his handling of that.
I think that you're absolutely right. That is one area that seems to be a bit of a weak spot for him. 41% approve of how he handled the general problems facing the auto industry in the last few months, and even more, 46% disapprove. This is unusual for this president because generally on specific issues like the economy, foreign policy, terrorism, we see nearly 6 in 10 Americans approving of the job he's doing. They have since he's taken office. He's gotten pretty strong positive ratings. So this is kind of a weak spot.
Are these still honeymoon ratings?
Well, we'll see. I think that Americans are certainly waiting to see how his economic plans pan out, and at least as of now, they're patient. In previous polls, we found Americans don't expect quick fixes to this economy.
Now, the issue of Guantanamo Bay, whether it should be opened or closed, it seems like the the sentiment is starting to move in the president's favor.
It is. 48% in this poll told us that they thought the prison facilities at Guantanamo Bay should be closed. Fewer, 40%, think it should be kept open. And what we've seen since the beginning of the year is that the percentage who think it should be closed has slowly crept up. In January, 40% felt it should be closed. Then by April, it was 44%. Now, as I said, it's 48%. That number is inching up in every poll.
Now it gets to the war zones. You asked a question about Gitmo detainees and if they're concerned about whether they were released. And it turns out that there is a lot of concern about that.
Well, there is some concern. I think there's concern that these released detainees may turn around and attack the U.S. in the future. They're also concerned that if some of these detainees are released back to the countries they're originally from, that they could be tortured or killed. So there are concerns in a number of different directions. But overall, we're seeing nearly 7 in 10 Americans who think that really it's time to either charge these detainees with crimes or release them. Far fewer think that the U.S. should continue holding them without charging them with crimes.
In the question about how are things going for the U.S. in Iraq, it seems like there's been a decline since April at least.
There has, but it's still a remarkably positive story. 62% think that the war in Iraq is going well for the U.S. Just 31%, half as many, think that it's going badly. And quite frankly, it wasn't that long ago that we saw those numbers virtually reversed. Only the last couple of years, most Americans thought it was going badly there. So this is still positive.
In September of 2008, only 46% thought it was going well.
This year, it's been really quite a positive story in terms of Americans' views on how things are going
in
Iraq.
Afghanistan, a similar trend?
Yeah, but the opposite. A similar
trend.
Well, a similar trend in that things have really, it's been the last few months, people have been very, very negative about how the war in Afghanistan is going. 55% think it's going badly. 30% think it's going well. So it's the opposite of what we're seeing in Iraq.
Sarah, thanks very much. I've been speaking with Sarah Dutton, who is the Director of Surveys for CBS News. For CBSNews.com, I'm Dan Farber.